So good evening, everyone. Great to have you here. So today's talk is the winner of a little poll I did this afternoon about the most common question you have about NGINX. And yeah, by far the most upvoted thing was the NGINX documentation. So how to navigate stuff inside of the NGINX docs. And this is what we want to do today. Welcome. Today we are streaming simultaneously on YouTube and Twitch. And yeah, this is possible because we have an awesome RTMP streaming module for NGINX. So I'm streaming from OBS to my streaming server. From my streaming server, I have two polls to NGINX, to YouTube and Twitch at the same time. So kudos for the developers behind the RTMP stream module. Awesome tool, great. So let's get started about everything about NGINX documentation. So I have prepared a little bit. Here we have an NGINX install, vanilla installation on a Ubuntu 20.04 VM, nothing really fancy. And we have our nginx.org website. And I mean, you're all aware in this situation where you want to do something with NGINX and ask yourself, look, how I can get started. So one thing is always here, the initial so the default configuration we have. So we have the nginx conf, we have something like HTTP, curly braces, we have include, a lot of directives, include statement for confd. So let's move on and check what's in confd. Here we have a default.conf. All, yeah, same server, curly braces, a lot of directives, a lot of variables and things. And yeah, believe it or not, they're all documented. So a little bit of my background, I worked as a professional services engineer for NGINX before I changed roles into the product management engineer. And yeah, as a professional services engineer, it's important to configure the NGINX on the customer side. And I don't know by far all directives at the same time. This is literally not possible. I don't know any of those directives. So that's why I need the documentation as well. So I need a reference for the documentation. That's the case. So, and I use the nginx.org reference, the nginx.org documentation, in the same way you can use it. So there is no documentation for professional services engineers, for NGINX internals, using a different documentation that you could use. So it's always the same kind of documentation. So we can do nginx.org, and on the nginx.org, we have this section here, news, we have about download, security, and documentation. So that's the interesting part here. Basically, we have a lot to go through here. And this is the first thing, I guess, where the most people are getting confused because of, yeah, just the way you can browse through the documentation and can find different things here. So let's start wrapping that up and check the NGINX configuration first on our instance, and then we can go into the documentation website and see what we have here. So you check first my stream. Looks like it is loading somehow. Let me check my YouTube studio. Oh, 1 second. All right, looks like it's back, hopefully. All right, let's move on. Okay, so let's start here with the NGINX configuration. Make this a little bit bigger. And then let's start from the very beginning. So the first thing you definitely should know is that NGINX works in different contexts. So the whole documentation is split up in different areas called context. And for example, we have something like an event context. Fair enough. We have an overall context where we can specify the worker processes, the error log, the PID we want to use, the run user, stuff like that. So then we have something called HTTP context. And then there is a couple of directives and stuff, but let's start with HTTP. So HTTP, when we go back to the documentation we have on the site, you see we have NGINX HTTP core module, for example. All right, so let's see what else do we have. We have NGINX mail core module. So that means we can use NGINX as in a special proxy server for mail traffic. So as you can see, we have the event and then we have the mail context, curly braces, and a lot of stuff. Cool, so we know we have HTTP, we have mail. So then we have NGINX stream core module. We're going here. Same thing, the main context, and then we have stream curly braces and a couple of stuff in here. So this is the most important thing at the beginning when you start. Make sure you're in the right context. So we want to keep it simple for today and just talk about HTTP and stream. So HTTP, everything that's inside of the HTTP context is layer 7. So we are talking about HTTP and HTTPS protocols. So that means you can use NGINX as a web server, as a reverse proxy, load balancer for your HTTP applications, for your HTTP traffic, OSI layer 7. If we want to use OSI layer 4, so that means a TCP proxy, for example, or TCP load balancer for MySQL connections, Microsoft RDP connections, stuff like that, that goes inside of the stream module or the stream context. So let's make a little bit of an example here. So we have the HTTP context here, and we simply add another stream context here. And that's basically it. So we're on the highest level of the configuration, and we added the stream in here. So everything that has the stream inside the documentation, like in the URI here, or in the module name, can be used inside of the stream context. The HTTP modules, so like everything you see up here, there are a lot, everything in here can go inside of the HTTP context. All right, so this, if you understand this, how that is built and how that is working, this is the number one thing to know about NGINX documentation and the configuration. Everything is built in contexts, and the most important ones for today is HTTP and stream. Great. So let's have a look inside of the HTTP one. So in HTTP, we have an include statement. This is simply including another configuration file based on a given syntax. So you can, inside of the HTTP, we have a couple of general settings if you want, and then we say include etc nginx conf star.conf. So that means every file with an ending .conf inside of the conf directory will be included inside of the HTTP block or context. So that's the reason why the conf default.conf, I don't want to write this, I won't go in here, conf default.conf. So that's the reason why this is working, right? Because we have the include statement etc conf star.conf. So we have a configuration called default.conf. That's why it is loaded. So in here, this is the default configuration that comes with an fresh NGINX installation. A lot of stuff in here. And this configuration shows us our welcome to NGINX vanilla welcome page. So let's see how that is working. So remember, we are still in the HTTP context, and inside of the HTTP context, we have a server. So let's see how, if we can reproduce this with our configuration or with the documentation. All right, so we know we are in the HTTP context. Then we have a ton of modules here, as you can see. Proxy module, rewrite module, keyval module, JS module. But let's start with the core module. I recommend this for you if you want to get started and you don't know for what to look. Start with the NGINX core module, because a lot of stuff will be present in the core module. So let's have a look in here. All right, so, and let's check for server. So in here we have the syntax server, and here, let me make this a little bit bigger. Satisfy root, where is my server? Let's play hit enter again, here. Server, resolver timeout. All right, I lost my server, but now I will show you one of the most hidden tricks on the internet. Because yeah, I use this every day at least 100 times. So in case you know the directive, server, location, proxy pass, whatever, and you want to check the documentation about what it is. So what is a server? What is a proxy pass? What is a location block? What parameter you can use for this directive? You can simply do nginx.org/r/server, enter, and it will push you directly to that point where the directive is explained. So to be very honest with all of you, I was not aware of this feature until that point I started my working career with F5 or NGINX. So that was at my day 2 or 3 that somebody told me, look, if you want to look up directives, you don't have to scroll through the website and use Command F to search for it. Simply do nginx.org/r/directive. So, and this is definitely worth to point this a little bit more out. So let me do Visual Studio Code. I will make this big on the screen. I don't think this is a secret, to be very honest. I hope not. So it is nginx.org/r, no braces, /r/directive. Can't type directive. So in that case, it could be server or proxy pass or listen. Hit enter, and this will redirect you to the actual documentation page. So R listen. Cool, we're in the listener. So I don't think this is a secret. If this is a secret, yeah, I don't care. I think this is absolutely worth showing everybody, because this is one of the greatest and awesome features I've ever saw with our documentation. So let's go back to the server. R server shortcut server. All right. So, and one thing you see here is the context, and that's why I explained the context principle at the beginning in that deep and that clear, because you will see this context quite everywhere. Context, a lot of configuration, context, HTTP server location. So again, the NGINX configuration works with such context. So that means if you find something like server, listen, server name, whatever, inside of our documentation, check the context, because then you can be sure if you're in the HTTP context, and we are in the HTTP context, the server directive is only allowed inside of the HTTP context. Means you cannot have a server directive outside the HTTP directive, or you cannot have a server directive inside of another server directive. So this is what this context tells you here. Very, very, very important. So check the context. So for example here, send file max chunk, can be applied on the HTTP level, server level, location level. So let me stick here for a second and hook into this server location context hierarchy as we were talking about. So send file max chunk is a special directive, fair enough, but what does it mean to be applied in HTTP server or location level? What does it affect? So basically, you can think about, you have a hierarchy, as I said. You have the HTTP context. So we have the HTTP context. Let's close this. Then we have the server context, and we have the location context. So, and as you can see, this is a hierarchy. So that means if I specify something, so let's make an example of the error log. So I am specify the error log directive on the HTTP level and specify an error log. Great. Then I have multiple servers inside of my HTTP, which is absolutely doable. And I have multiple locations inside of a server. And we will do this right now. We'll do this in a second in the lab, so don't be afraid. So what I can do here is I can use the error log directive inside of my server, or I can use my error log directive inside of a location. Can't type today, so first of all, let's prove if this is correct. So let's check out the error log directive. So let's go back, nginx.org, r error underscore log. Error log. So the error log syntax is error log. So this one is called directive, and the directive error log can be applied in main. So it can even be sit one level higher than this, right? So we have error log, HTTP, it can be in mail, it can be in stream, it can be in server, or it can be in location. Great. So we don't have to be afraid because we know all of them. We know main, we know HTTP, we know what mail is, we know what stream is, we know what a server location is, and we know what a location context is. So we learned a lot in the last 15 minutes. And that's what we can work with. So we know that we can apply that here, can apply that in HTTP, in server, and in location. But again, what does it mean? So it simply means that we have an overall error log outside of the HTTP. So this is the global error log of our NGINX instance. So all the errors we log, they will go inside of the error log, configured outside of the HTTP. So for HTTP, for stream, for mail, for all of them. So then we have an error log inside of the HTTP context. So that means all the errors we produce inside of the HTTP context will go straight to this log file. So then we are inside of a server block. So a server block is, for example, foo.com, example.com, any server domain or host name you can think about. And then we specify another error log for this particular server. So that means we have an error log for server 1 and we have server 2. So we can have multiple error logs for different servers inside of the server location. And if we want to have different error logs per location, so this means we have server location A, whatever error log. So an NGINX will start searching for the highest fit is on the main level, and then it starts going one level deeper and deeper and deeper till the location block. And if you specify an error log for a location, we will send the error log output straight to this error log. So this is how the NGINX configuration hierarchy works. And this is another very, very important thing beside of the context, to know that we have this hierarchy. Because if you're aware of the hierarchy and if you're aware of the overall context itself or in general, you're quite golden. So that's basically the number one knowledge about NGINX configuration, that you know this structure. So there was a question on chat. Can you go over what stream is? Yes. So the stream module, again, is for layer 4 TCP proxying load balancing. So that means, let me do an example here. So let's dig into an example. So let's say we have a server that's listening on port 80, server name localhost, whatever, and it prints out our nice NGINX Hello World page here. So let's create a stream configuration that proxies an incoming request on port 8080 to localhost port 80 to see how that works. So, and let's given we have absolutely no idea how that works. So we know there is a stream context and we know there is a HTTP context, but we do not have a single idea how that works. So let's use the docs for it. So we go in here, let's delete everything here, and let's go to documentation. All right, so then let's check out, this is, as I said, HTTP, this is the HTTP context, but we want a stream context. So let's go in here, and as I said, let's start with the core module. Cool, so let's read. The NGINX Stream Core module is available since version 1.9. Module is not built with by default, you should be enabled with, okay. So I had a lot of questions on Stack Overflow about what version I'm running on, do I have this module enabled, how can I build this module? So let's do a brief check if this is a thing on our instance. So to get the NGINX version, we can simply type NGINX with sudo lowercase v for version. That was not the right password. So this is the default version for Ubuntu 1.18.0. At the moment we are at 19.9, so a little bit outdated here, but still not a problem. So the NGINX version is 1.18, great. So higher than 1.9.0, good. But what does this mean, enabled with stream configured? So at the point where NGINX was built, so basically NGINX source code is C, so it's written in C. So to make it executable on your instance, you have to build it from source with a makefile. Great, you don't have to do this. NGINX provides pre-packed binaries for different operating systems. But if we are curious how NGINX was configured before it was built on our side, we can use the NGINX sudo NGINX, can't type, NGINX capital or uppercase V. And this will print out by far a lot more output. Let me move my face out of the way. So as you see, we see the same version, 1.18, great. And here we see the configure arguments. And in here, we see all the different static modules NGINX was built with. So with HTTP auth request, with silent module, and in here, we definitely should see the stream module with stream. So we know the version is higher than 1.9.0, and we know this with stream configuration parameter is part of our currently running instance. Cool. All right, so let's move on. Right, so stream, this is an example. We have upstream, we have a server, listen, proxy pass, a lot of things in here. All right, so let's move on. So first we need a stream, great. We can use an upstream, great, or we can define a server with a listen. Okay, so let's start here. Let's start with a stream and a server. Great. So let's use Vim to change the NGINX configuration. And in here we have the HTTP. Let me sudo bash here. as we do a lot of changes in here. So vim nginx.conf, let's go to the very end of the file and add the stream context. Stream context, great. And as I always suggest to use includes and just do the minimal changes to the NGINX core configuration file. We use an include statement, include etc nginx conf d, and now it's up to you. You can do something like conf d.stream or conf stream.d or conf s.d. Let's do this. Let's say conf.stream.d, everything with .conf will go in here. Do not miss the semicolon at the end. Write and quit this thing, and let's create the conf.stream.d directory. Great. So let's move into this stream and create a default .conf. So that means we are now inside of the stream context. We included a configuration file. So let's do a server config. So a server has a listen and a couple of proxy directives. Cool. So let's check out what is listen. Listen, address and port. Sets the address and port for the socket on which the server will accept connections. So let's check out the examples. Cool. We can just have a port. We can have start, port, localhost port, alright, DNS version or the name version of it. So let's just go for a port. Let's say listen 8080. That should be absolutely enough for today. So let's say server, curly braces, listen 8080. Cool. Great. So that's good for now. So let's do this. And now we want to check the configuration. If the configuration is syntactically correct, or maybe we did something wrong. So doing this, you can do nginx-t will do the config test. And we have no handler for server, default.conf. So we did something wrong, obviously. So server, listen, and that means there is more to it. We have to put something in it. So that means at least a proxy pass. Great. So, but what does proxy pass mean? So let's go up here. And you see, no proxy pass here. Okay, so a good advice, go one step back, check the overall page and see if there is a proxy module. Cool, there is a proxy module. So click on here, and in here you will find the proxy protocol or proxy path. And this is basically exactly what we want. So this is the documentation, and see it's stream proxy module. Proxy path takes an address and it's applied inside of the server context. Great, so let's do this. Let's say proxy path. Remember, we are outside of layer 7. We are outside of the HTTP context, so do not put HTTP in front of it. The stream module of NGINX is not able to handle HTTP : / here because we are outside of layer 7. This is a raw TCP connection. So let's say we are localhost port 80. Write quit. Syntax is okay, test is successful. So with colon and with -s reload, we are reloading the NGINX configuration. If you do not see any errors here, that means NGINX was successfully reloaded. All right, so we have the reload. And now let's check if we do netstat here, hopefully it is installed, and we grab on listen. It is not installed, but it doesn't matter. Net tools. So let's install netstat. Cool. Check again, and you see we have now port 8080 up and running. So it's listening for connections. I mean, we can use curl or we can go here in the browser. Doesn't really matter. Let's do this, port 8080. Same result. So a little recap, what we did. We set it up a stream TCP proxy for our already running HTTP web server on port 80. And we used the NGINX documentation to, guide us how to do this. So as I said, stream context. Let me do this. So we did stream, we did server, and inside of server, we used a couple of directives. Or one directive, proxy pass. So this is the hierarchy of our configuration at the moment. HTTP context, stream context, server, server. All right. So is this question answered for what is a stream proxy or what is a stream configuration? Stream configuration is always handy when you want to proxy HTTP or proxy TCP connections or TCP traffic. So for example, if you want to, let me tell you what I used with the stream context. I used the stream for load balancing, RTMP. I use it for Microsoft Remote Desktop protocol sessions. I use it for SSH connections. So I'm proxying SSH connections from a jump host to target hosts based on different ports with NGINX. You can use the stream TCP proxy if you want to load balance or a proxy HTTP traffic that requires additional, for example, good example, Microsoft NTLM. It's pretty hard to do this with NGINX open source to do the NTLM handshakes correct. So I like to do this with the layer 4 stream proxy because it's pretty easy, very easy to set up, and it just works. Okay. So this is basically the stuff we have for stream. So that means we are aware of a lot of the main context, HTTP. Then we have core, access, auth, whatever. We know this little trick with R server, which is great. And another cool thing is we can Google for that. You can Google for NGINX directives or alphabetical directives. So we have, for me, I think we have at least two very, very helpful alphabetical ordered index pages. Got it? So one is the alphabetical index of directives. This side is huge, right? So it is, as I said, it is huge. But this was before I had this little trick with /r/directive. I used this side as kind of a directory, because what I can do here is I can use Control F or Shift F, whatever the shortcut is on your side, and search for something server. Proxy as a server name, server for core, for stream, for mail, server name, server indirective, server tokens. So all the directives we have on the NGINX are listed on that site. So that means if you see an NGINX configuration on GitHub, on whatever, Pastebin, on some of my videos, wherever, and you're curious about a special directive, go to the nginx.org dearindex.html, and you will find a list of all the possible directives we have inside of our NGINX configuration on that site. And this is absolutely awesome and absolutely helpful. And I'm talking to you as a long-time NGINX user, as well as a professional services engineer who worked with customers and NGINX products. And that was my day-to-day business. I used that site every day because, as I said in the beginning, I do not know all NGINX directives. I know people, at least a couple of, in our engineering team and support team, they know at least 95%, I think, or even 100 of all the directives. I do not. So I'm not counting to the people who know at least 50%, maybe, because there are a lot. And the combination of it, so even if you know a directive, it depends on the combination of different directives how to create an NGINX configuration. So this is the tricky part. But with this information, like the different context, HTTP, stream, mail, whatever, the hierarchy, the alphabetical index of directives, as well as our little nice shortcut r/server name, pretty helpful. The overall documentation, when you want to find a module, you can use this one, which is pretty handy. And yeah, one more thing I will show you in config first, and then we go to the documentation side. So let's go in the HTTP context one more time. And let's get rid of all the stuff we maybe don't need here. Error page. Well, let's get rid of all that stuff in here we don't need for this demo. Cool. So we have location, we have error page, and we know after this session how to look for those directives. So that's what we learned today. We know how to look up listen. We know how to look up server name, location, what is root, what is index, and all the stuff we can put in here. All right. So let's do another quick thing, and I will introduce you something else. So let's create another server. And this is, let me point out a different here. As you can see, we can have another listen 80. It doesn't matter. What we cannot have, and this is the difference between HTTP and stream, we cannot have another 8080 HTTP server, or we cannot have another 8080 stream server listener, right? This will only work in HTTP. I can have multiple port 80, I can have multiple port 443, but I can in stream module, I can just have one port 8080, 180, 1443, whatever. So we have another listener here. We have a server name, example.com. So this will get the information from the host header. And then we have location / in here. Oops. So and now, what is this guy doing here? Yeah, that's what I'm asking myself at least 2 times a day. What the heck I'm doing here? And yeah, what I'm doing here is I create a server for a specific server name called example.com and the location / and then I use something weird, return, and then something that looks like an HTTP status code 200 and variables and /n semicolon on the wrong place, whatever. Let's write that and let's have a look inside of our docs what weird stuff I just typed here. So we know what a server is, we know what a listener is, so let's check server name. So what can we do? We can use the alphabetical index, server name, but we are smart. That's why we use /r/server name. Oops. /r/server name. sets the name of the virtual server, for example, server name example.com. Cool, so we have a virtual server, great. And we have a location, / great. And we have a return 200. So let's see, what is return? So stops processing and returns the specific code to a client, the non-standard code, close a connection without sending, starting from a lot to read here. So basically, it really just does what we see here. It stops processing the request and sends back the text we have here in the quotes to the client. Be very, very careful with return. I will make another video about return and the so-called access phase of our configuration with NGINX. Not today. Be tuned and stay tuned for the next video. I will explain the access phases and return statement and all that stuff in the new video. But be aware with return. Keep that in mind till the next video. So we wrote the configuration, we have return, and we have host in URI. Cool. So let's see if this is valid. It is. Curl, is it big enough? Curl. Oh, let me move my face out of the way. Curl. Then we say host for host header. We say host was example.com. And then we have localhost. Cool. Response is example.com / interesting thing. Cool. We use something like $URI. Yeah, it may look like a variable, and that's exactly what it is. It is just a variable. Cool. So that means we have variables in NGINX as well. That's awesome. So let's Google for that. So we have the modules here. And let's see if we can find it here from source, command line, configuration file, debugging, setting and hashes, connection. Module reference, alphabetical index of directives. This is the stuff we already saw. Great. There's another one, alphabetical index of variables. And this is quite of the same story. Huge site. We have a lot of variables. And let's check if we see $host. Yep. And $URI. Yep. Cool. So let's check out what is host. The $host variable in this order of preference, host name from the request line or host name from the host request header field or the server name matching a request. All right, so we have host name, we have HTTP name, and let's check URI. I should do my search a little bit better. The current URI in request, normalized. The value of URI may change during request processing. Yeah, we're doing internal redirects or rewrites. So what does normalized mean? So that leads us to the core module, to the location block. And as you can see, you can define a location block with regex, and normalized means quite, yeah, it shows you the actual URI we can use. Cool. So that means what we learned today is we know that we have something that is called context. Then we have something that can be a context, but it is called directive. Everything that's behind a directive, something like if we do this and say this is a listen directive, yeah, and the listen directive has a param or a parameter port 80. So this is the parameter or the value of a directive. And then we have directives, we have values or params for directives, and proxy set header host $host. And we have variables. All right, so let's recap this one more time before we finish this stream for today. What do you need to master the NGINX documentation or the NGINX docs is be aware of the different contexts we have in the NGINX configuration. Main, HTTP, stream, mail, for example. Be aware of the hierarchy we have inside of the NGINX configuration. HTTP level 1, server level 2, location level 3, right? So these are the absolutely most important golden rules when it comes to NGINX configuration: hierarchy and context. Search for stuff on nginx.org inside of documentation. We have two very important sites: the alphabetical index of directives to have a list of all directives we have, and alphabetical index of variables to check out a list of all variables we have inside of NGINX. So then the core functionality is everything on the main context, and then the configuration reference is splitted or divided by its modules. HTTP core module, everything with HTTP here sits inside of the HTTP context, everything with mail in mail, everything with stream in stream. If you want to find something for your HTTP context, look at the core module first and have a look in here. And I'm pretty sure you will find most of the things you will gonna need. A little sneak: HTTP core is for all the core stuff, and if you want to proxy, you can use the HTTP proxy module here. So this is how it works. Find the context, find the module, do the configuration. If you find something on GitHub, Pastebin, whatever in my videos, check out nginx.org/r/directive to jump directly to the directive. All right. So that's basically all you know, or you should know about all things NGINX configuration. As I said, I am not aware of 50% of all the configuration directives and its configuration combinations, but the way I use the documentation is exactly the way I've showed you how to use the documentation today. I will cover more of the specific things in my next videos, in my next streams. So if you like that video, leave a comment or a like, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel for all things NGINX, NJS, NGINX Unit, NGINX Plus, whatever you want to see. Leave a comment with your questions. I will pick that up and answer your questions in one of my next videos. It was absolutely great to have you here. Hopefully you learned a lot about how NGINX documentation works, how you can use it. Subscribe, give me a like if you like the video. Have a good one, and see you soon here on my All Things NGINX channel. Goodbye.